Episode 7 wasn't as bad as I thought it was going to be. I actually did enjoy it, and I'll be honest, I'm not the type of person who will complain about something just for the sake of complaining about it. I tend to try my best to always try to look at the half filled part of the glass to see what positives I can take out of it. So, like I said, I did find this episode somewhat enjoyable. Now, that does not mean that the episode did not have its flaws, because trust me, it does. There's a lot of familiar problems that we expected to run into, and some plot lines that still make absolutely zero sense. So, I'll be going over the episode with you guys, scene by scene, and giving you my honest reaction and review about this. If there were going to be any Fire and Blood spoilers, you will see the spoiler icon in the bottom right, so it's just a quick warning. But other than that, let's get started. We open up inside Helena's dream, where we see a gray mare standing before her. We also see the heavy gate doors open up, and there have been a lot of interpretations on what this could possibly mean. But the one theory I thought I'd share with you guys that I definitely enjoyed reading is that the gray mare is representing death in a way, and the heavy gate doors opening up representing freedom. And what the dream is possibly conveying to Helaena is that your way to freedom or getting out of this whole situation is through death, aka the gray mare. And I don't know if that's necessarily true or not. It could, again, be a shot in the dark because we don't get to see the whole dream sequence. And it's because we hear Rhaenyra's voice pull her awake from that dream. So I don't know, but what do you guys think? And after Rhaenyra waking her up, she begins gently enough, asking her questions like whether Aemond ever asked her to ride Dreamfire into battle, and Helaena explains that she once wanted to fly, but being with Dreamfire now became too much. She connects that fear in a way to Viserys, who stopped riding after Balerion and chose a quieter life because he did not wish to be changed. And that is a question hanging over Rhaenyra before the episode has even properly started. Do dragons change their riders, or do they simply give people enough power to reveal what was already inside them? Helaena asks whether Rhaenyra herself has been altered now that she commands so many dragons, and Rhaenyra immediately rejects that idea. Then Rhaenyra reveals why she's really there. She's learned that Helaena might be a dreamer, and she wants useful intelligence. She asks about Daemon, the Winter Wolves, Templeton, and even Ormond. But Helaena keeps saying that she does not know. Rhaenyra stops asking as a sister and begins threatening as a queen, demanding reassurance that there has been no mistake and that she will somehow prevail. And I feel terrible for Helaena in this scene. She's pregnant, grieving, imprisoned, and frightened by her own visions. And now the people around her have discovered that even her trauma might be politically useful. But probably my favorite piece of foreshadowing in the series was in this scene. Rhaenyra's fate is literally stitched out in front of her while she demands answers. In the embroidery that Helaena is stitching, you can see a ship, and Rhaenyra is so blind to it, and she's blind in her pursuit of destiny. She literally casts it aside and betrays herself, lashing out violently at Helaena. And then we get to Harrenhal, unfortunately. I mean, I'm not gonna get into it again. I mean, I'm sure it's probably obvious how much I dislike Harrenhal and any Harrenhal involved plot. But this takes the cake, honestly. This was just disgusting. But let's get into it, shall we? We see Aemond trying to get better, practice, and then he sees Alicent. And I'll be honest, I didn't know this was Alice at first. I didn't know this was a dream fuck fantasy, whatever the fuck this was. I don't know what this was. I just genuinely thought this was Alicent. And then whenever she started being affectionate and what blah blah blah, I'm like, okay, she's being manipulative. I can get behind this, sure. And then they started getting closer and closer. I'm like, please no, God no, please no, please no. And then when they went to the bed, my jaw was on the floor. I'm like, I don't know, like, why Alicent has to be written so badly. I genuinely feel so bad for Olivia, and the way her character has been written this season, it's just so bad. And there's no excusing it. And then we see them have sex, and what boggled my mind is the second he realized it's not his actual mother, he stopped. He was like, no. And I'm like, just lost for words. Because that's just messy, deranged, and disgusting. And I don't know if Ryan has like a kink for moms and sons or whatever this whole thing is, because this is not the first time it's happened. But I'm wishing that it doesn't happen again, because I don't want to see this again. I genuinely don't, because I honestly don't get the point of it. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of psychology at play here, and I feel so many ways other than this to show that somebody has mommy issues without making overly sexualized and so deranged in a way. There's so many better ways to convey what I think they might be trying to convey. But yeah, I don't know. We'll see. And then we get to the Vale, where we see Daemon get there and talk to Lady Jane and ask her where Rhaenyra is. And she tells him that she flew away shortly after Jane sent for him. And she makes it clear that she can't simply imprison her, especially when she refuses to remain hidden at this point. And then comes the audacious line where Lady Jane says that, and I quote, "Villagers have been talking about a wild girl in the mountains living among nettles and sheep." And let me tell you, when I heard that, I was like, don't piss me off. That was so, like, the audacity of saying that line is just, it was so funny to me at the time as well. I couldn't help but laugh. Because for anyone who has not read the book, Nettles is Sheep Stealer's writer in the book, and the show transferred the entire story to Rhaenyra. You just hear the words nettles and sheep in Jane's dialogue as, I don't know, maybe they intended for it to be a tribute, but it doesn't come off that way. It genuinely comes off as, rubbing it in everybody's faces who enjoyed the character and loved her, because a lot of people out there did enjoy her. For me personally, I didn't hate the change very much. I was open to it, but I just found this to be very hilarious. I mean, you can't erase a whole character and then just do this. It's just, it was just very stupid. But then Jane tells him she's ready to tell Rhaenyra everything, and then Daemon asks for one more day and falls report that Rhaenyra has been searching for Vhagar near Fair Market. And then we check in with Baela and Addam, who are still searching for Vhagar, and Baela says they are perhaps a couple of days behind Aemond, and she also admits that she feels Rhaenyra might be keeping her away as punishment. And then Addam asks whether Baela might support Corlys' effort to legitimize him and Alan as Velaryons, but Baela points out that after the Gauntlet, her influence with Rhaenyra is limited, and I agree. I mean, Rhaenyra barely looks at her, and it's very strenuous, that relationship, and I don't blame either of them, to be honest, but I feel for both of them. She also questions why titles suddenly matter when Addam already has a dragon. Then she realizes that, they spoke together about marriage, him and his brother, and status. And it's a small scene, but it matters because the episode is quietly building the question of what recognition means to both brothers. Addam has sea smoke, yet a dragon does not erase the social insecurity of being treated as an illegitimate son. We then get to Tumbleton, where we see Ormund treat Corlys as something between a prisoner and a dinner guest. And he also explains that Corlys is useful because the Velaryon men might reconsider entering King's Landing while their lord is being held captive. And obviously without the Velaryon forces, Ormund hopes that the city will collapse into disorder again. But Corlys obviously refuses to be charmed or recruited, and Ormund needles him about the Targaryens, Rhaenys, and the way that family destroys its own. And Corlys just simply asks to return to his cell. But this scene clarifies that Corlys is not Ormund's full plan, he is leverage. And even Daeron just says that, small line where he immediately recognizes that a hostage in Tumbleton does not stop 20,000 soldiers from reaching the gates. We then cut to Gwaine and Daeron having a private conversation about Ormund's strange confidence. And I'll be honest, I'm only able to see Daeron's real character through these private scenes with Gwaine. Other than that, I can't tell, to be honest. But we do see them ask whether, Corlys is the mysterious piece on the board, and they both question what unrest in King's Landing matters when an army is nearly upon them. And then we see Daeron considering ordering a surrender, which was very confusing to me because I don't think Daeron the Daring would ever say something like this. He'd never say, I don't care about Rhaenyra and I don't care about Rhaenyra's crown. And I don't know if Daeron would actually say that. In the books, he was very adamant about avenging his family, protecting his family, riding into battle to fight the Blacks. His position was incredibly clear. But I don't know if the show's trying to frame him as more of an innocent bystander slash victim of the civil war, like Helaena, for example. Like, I don't know what they're trying to do with this, and we don't have much time left with him, which makes me curious on what they have in store for him and how they plan on tying all of this together, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. And then we get to the most incompetent small council in the history of Westeros. I mean, I'm sorry, you guys, but look at this council. We get a Mistress of Whispers who does not know shit about anything. We get a Maester who's, by the way, a traitor and somehow has a seat on said council. Mind-baffling, by the way. We also get, I mean, this lady from House Trey, I don't even know what she's doing here. What is she contributing? Besides the point, we get to the Master of Coin, who is a master of nothing, because we already established there is no coin. I mean, if there's one person here that is actually competent, it's probably Alan. And that's pretty much it. This whole council is an embarrassment, honestly. But to save us from this council, thank God, we do get to see Adam and Baela come in and report that they sighted Sheep Stealer and he has a new rider. And they chased him but lost him in the hills. And then who jumps on this? You guessed it, Miss Arya. She immediately connects the sightings to the false skull Daemon brought Rhaenyra and to his unexplained departure before dawn. And she suggests that Daemon may have formed a secret alliance after growing frustrated with Rhaenyra's restraint. And Rhaenyra thankfully resists the conclusion, but Miss Arya asks the most dangerous question: is there anything Daemon could do that Rhaenyra would truly consider impossible? Which is fair. That is a really good question, but she's being very manipulative here. And she's trying to get rid of Daemon because the whole dynamic between Miss Arya and Daemon has turned into both of them trying to get rid of the other person. We then cut to Aegon, Larys, and Tyland heading towards Maidenpool, and we see that they're still arguing about where they should flee. Aegon wants to go to Braavos, and Larys also continues to try to sell exile as a strategy. But then we see some small folk warn them that a mutant army is marching through the area, and because the mutants are sworn to Rhaenyra and searching for talent and also the missing gold, the road to Maidenpool is now not an option. So they decide to retreat to Rook's Rest. And I feel like that's the last place that Aegon wants to revisit. And I feel like it's because it kind of forces him back towards the place where his body, crown, and dragon were destroyed. And after they make it to Rook's Rest, they're warned again, and they find that the mutant army is searching village by village and will be there soon. So Larys suggests that Tyland surrenders himself so Aegon and Larys can escape, which I thought was absolutely hilarious. But Tyland obviously points out that Larys benefits from that arrangement as well, so Aegon just finally refuses the entire logic of running altogether. He says that he will not die as an unknown fugitive covered in dust, and he will make his stand and be buried as a king with his dragon. And so far, the journey of Aegon has actually been very enjoyable to watch. I mean, I wish we get more of him, but like I said, in the book, we don't get to know much about his journey until his major reveal later on. So seeing him struggle and go through all these stuff has been very satisfying. I won't say redeeming, and I'm not gonna say that he deserves to be the king either, but it's been very cool to watch, I suppose. We then get to the episode's major dragon sequence. We see that Daemon finds Rhaenyra in the Riverlands, and she admits that she can't continue living cut off from everyone she loves, and she believes that killing Vhagar might repay part of her debt to Rhaenyra, and if she dies, she says, she will at least die absolved. And then Daemon offers to help, and I really did enjoy this part of the scene because he finally speaks to the loneliness beneath her choices. He tells her that he also grew up without a dragon and without a mother, and he also admits that he should have done better by her. But of course, before the conversation can even settle, we see that Rhaenyra and Addam arrive with their dragons. And once they start accusing one another, the dragons just, I feel, take control of that scene because it just, every dragon becomes angsty at that point, especially Sheep Stealer. But we see that Rhaenyra realized that Rhaena was the rider all along and that Daemon knew. And she gets Rhaena away while Addam escorts the queen. And Daemon stays behind as him and Caraxes continue the fight. And Sheepstealer eventually escapes injured, but I thought this sequence was honestly kind of cool but it was mostly so very stressful and also sad. I really did feel bad for her sheep stealer. I feel like nobody wins. Rhaenyra loses sheep stealer again, and sheep stealer is wounded, Daemon's lie is exposed, and Rhaenyra receives the truth in the most chaotic way possible. We then get to Mysaria and Sylvie in the throne room, and here Sylvie warns that the city is becoming dangerous and that Rhaenyra's refusal to hear petitions makes the small folk feel abandoned. Mysaria, however, proposes acting as a bridge, gathering grievances and bringing selected problems to the queen when her mood is more receptive. Sylvie obviously sees the transformation clearly. Mysaria now stands in silk at the foot of a throne, promising to whisper into a queen's ear. She accuses Mysaria of styling herself as a champion of the powerless in order to gain access to power. And what I really liked about this scene is that Sylvie identifies the contradiction at the center of Mysaria's new position. Mysaria still sees herself as someone speaking for the powerless, but she is now doing it from inside the palace, dressed in silk, deciding which grievances are important enough to reach the queen when the queen is emotionally prepared to hear them. That is not the same as giving the people a voice. It also gives Mysaria the power to filter that voice in a way. And I don't think that the scene is saying that she has become completely insincere. Mysaria probably does care about the small folk still, but Sylvie is right to question what happens when compassion also becomes access, status, and influence. It also prepares us for her later scene with Rhaenyra. Mysaria understands not only what the queen needs to hear, but when she is most vulnerable to hearing it. And that's what makes their relationship more interesting, because her affection may be genuine, but the emotional intimacy is also becoming one of the ways she exercises political power. We then move back to Harrenhal, and I don't know, you guys, this whole sequence has just been so messy. I mean, let's unpack it. We see Alicent in previous scenes get the dagger, and while she's doing that, she looks ahead and finds Nightshade just right in her face. How convenient. Anyways, not gonna question that. She spikes the wine and then brings Aemond a cup of spice wine. And she tells him that she remembers when he could not fall asleep without it, which is such an intimate maternal memory to weaponize against your own child. And on paper, that should be devastating, but a mother using one of the few comforting memories from her son's childhood to poison him is dark. It's tragic. And I mean, regardless if Aemond is a horrible person or not, I just feel like it's just so dark. And it's completely, in a way, appropriate for this family. But I'm sorry, you guys, Alicent's character has been written so badly this season that I could barely focus on the tragedy because all I can think was Rhaenyra's greatest soldier has completed yet another mission. And at this point, somebody genuinely needs to give Alicent a black uniform and a seat on Rhaenyra's council. She has literally been more productive for Team Black than most of the people actually serving Team Black. Rhaenyra's council spends half its time arguing with her, Daemon disappears whenever he is needed, and her dragon riders are beginning to freelance, literally. And meanwhile, Alicent is crossing enemy territory, personally eliminating members of Team Green. I mean, you literally can't make this up. I mean, let's look at it. She offered Rhaenyra King's Landing. She literally opened the gates. She accepted that Aegon would have to die and pretty much gave him up. Now she travels all the way to Harrenhal to poison Aemond, which she, by the way, gave up his hiding place. At this rate, honestly, Rhaenyra should just stop sending armies and just ask Alicent which relative she plans to betray next. And also, I don't know why I find it comically hilarious, the fact that Alicent is able to cross all these distances faster than the rivermen that we have been seeing since the start of the season, yet to arrive to King's Landing. Not gonna question it. Again, let's just move on. Let's see what Ryan has in store. But I understand what the writers are reaching for. Alicent believes Aemond is dangerous. He is controlling her. He wants to keep her at Harrenhal. He has built an entire fantasy about starting a new royal dynasty with Alice. And he admits that he tried to kill Aegon. And Alicent presumably believes that removing him is the only way to protect Helaena. But there's a potentially compelling tragedy in a mother realizing that the sons she raised have become threats to her daughter and to the realm. The problem is that the show has made protecting Helaena
into a magic phrase that can justify Alicent doing absolutely anything. Betray Aegon, it's for Helaena. Poison Aemond, it's for Helaena. Collaborate with the women whose faction is holding Helaena captive, somehow also for Helaena. Her protection always seems to require sacrificing one child to save another, and the show keeps presenting each new betrayal as though Alicent has been dragged into it against her will. And at some point, she's no longer being carried by events, she's actively making those choices. And that would be fine if the writing allowed her to own them. Like, let Alicent admit that she has chosen Rhaenyra over the political cause she spent years creating. Let her admit that she has given up on her sons. Let her become colder, more calculating, or even more ruthless. Any of those directions would work, could work. And instead, the writers keep moving her wherever the plot needs her, and then relying on Olivia Cook to stare sadly enough that it feels like character development. And Olivia Cook is doing everything she can, you guys. I feel bad for her, I genuinely do. When Alicent hands Aemond that cup, you can see the guilt, fear, and hesitation. But the performance is doing CPR on a character arc that the writing has already declared dead. Even Aemond's confession feels suspiciously convenient. Right before he drinks, he admits that he tried to kill Aegon. Of course he does. The script practically pauses to hand Alicent a permission slip. Do not worry, audience. Poisoning this son is morally acceptable. He attempted to murder the other son she already surrendered to Rhaenyra. And then there is a logistical question nobody in the episode appears interested in answering. And I'm curious what you guys think, but how exactly is Alicent planning to leave Harrenhal, genuinely? She tells Aemond that the journey was long and perilous, and the roads were dangerous, and so she would have never reached the castle without Sir Adrian. And we then see, obviously, Aemond kill him like 6 seconds after meeting him. So her guide is dead, her horses may or may not still exist, the surrounding forests are filled with wild men, Vhagar is probably coming back, I don't know. Alice knows exactly what she came here to do, and Alicent has just poisoned the most dangerous man in this castle. So what is step 2? Is she walking back to King's Landing? Is there a carriage waiting behind Harrenhal? Did she schedule a return raven? Is Rhaenyra sending an extraction team? Because the episode treats arriving at Harrenhal like an impossible journey and escaping it like something Alicent can deal with after breakfast. I swear, the finale better not cut to Alicent safely back in King's Landing with no explanation. I swear that would piss me off so much, because this woman cannot keep traveling across a war zone through the power of unresolved romantic tension. And that's why the jokes about Alicent being quote-unquote Rhaenyra's best soldier are funny, because they expose the actual problem. Alicent no longer feels like a character pursuing her own coherent beliefs. She literally feels like a mechanism that the writers use to remove obstacles from Rhaenyra's path while keeping Rhaenyra's hands technically clean. And I absolutely hate it. I hate that so much, because Rhaenyra wants Aegon gone, Alicent offers him up. Rhaenyra wants to get into King's Landing, Alicent opens up the gates. Rhaenyra wants Aemond neutralized, Alicent poisons him. At this point, Alicent is not Team Green, Team Black, or even Team Helaena. She is Team whatever Rhaenyra needs accomplished before the finale. It's ridiculous. Moving on from all that, we get a really sweet scene that I really did enjoy between Rhaena and Baela, where we see Rhaena apologize to Baela for Jace and for what her choices cost them. Baela stops her and embraces her, and I really like the decision more than this beat, though, because Jace's death and Rhaena's guilt are enormous, and the reconciliation, I feel, could have used more room to breathe, if that makes sense. Still, I prefer Baela refusing to turn grief into another family feud. So, you know, she doesn't say nothing happened, she just tells Rhaena that she can begin again. We then get to one of my favorite scenes in the episode, which is Helena's larger dream sequence. And I feel like there's so much we can take away from these visions, but I'm curious about what you guys think and how you interpreted them, because I don't necessarily think we're watching one fixed future. I think that Helaena is being shown different paths that are available to her, and every path feels like it comes with its own form of suffering. And again, these are just my interpretations, so take it with a grain of salt. But the first one is what I think happens if she remains in King's Landing under Rhaenyra. And we see her give birth, and she hears her baby crying, and then immediately watches as the child is being taken away. So she survives, but motherhood is taken away from her again. And the second path places her inside the dragon pit, which I think is during the storming of the dragon pit. And
Before I get into anything, I just want to take a moment to appreciate how absolutely gorgeous and beautiful Dreamfire is. She's genuinely just an amazing dragon, and I heard a lot of people online saying that the horns make it look ugly, and I completely disagree with that. I will stand no Dreamfire hate. She absolutely looks beautiful. But moving on, the vision itself is horrifying for Helaena, because she may be defending Dreamfire and the other dragons from the people attacking them, but she's also commanding her dragon to burn human beings, and that is exactly the kind of violence she has spent the episode saying she fears. So to save the creature she loves, she would have to become someone capable of doing something she never wanted to do. Then we see what happens, or we see what appears to be the peaceful life Helaena actually wants. She's away from the throne and reunited with her children. We also definitely see the chickens, the damn chickens, and we see the gray mare appear again. And I think that, like I said, the gray mare represents death, and that possibility that this piece only exists for her in death. But even that image is swallowed by snow and darkness, and that could simply represent death consuming the peaceful fantasy. But it could also be pointing towards the long night, the Song of Ice and Fire, and the prince that was promised. Helaena may be seeing that this war is only one part of a much larger story that none of them fully understand. So to me, the tragedy connecting all three visions is that Helaena is not being shown a path where she simply escapes. She can lose her child, lose her innocence to dragonfire, or find peace only for that peace to be overtaken by something even greater. We then get to whatever this is. This whole thing it was just very confusing. But we see Rhaenyra go to Mysaria in the middle of the night and tell her that Daemon's been hiding Rhaena along, and we see that Rhaenyra turns some of her anger towards Mysaria, and she accuses her of pouring honey into her ear and trying to shape her, and flat out calling her manipulative. And Mysaria, however, defends herself by insisting that she has only encouraged Rhaenyra to follow Viserys' vision, which is true, but we will also acknowledge that she has been very manipulative. We also see that Mysaria gives Rhaenyra exactly what she's been craving: certainty. She promises that, Rhaenyra is on the edge of victory and that her enemies will fall away and that she will rule for years with her descendants after her. And then we see Rhaenyra ask her whether she believes she is worthy. And I could have predicted this. I mean, it's so obvious that this is what Rhaenyra's been craving, what she's been asking Daemon or Helaena to provide her with some proof of that. Mysaria says that she has never been more certain, and they become intimate. And I don't get that. You went in the middle of the night to call her manipulative and call her out on that, and it just turns into a sexually driven scene just because she gave you that validation that you were craving. I don't know. I mean, I'm not saying Mysaria hates Rhaenyra. I believe that she does care about her, but I also believe Sylvie's criticism matters because Mysaria understands that emotional access to the queen is biblical power, and she has learned exactly what reassurance Rhaenyra needs, and I feel like both things can be true. We then get to another scene in this episode that I actually did enjoy, if I'm being honest. We get to see Aegon and Tyland finally back at Rook's Rest, and we see them run into Rhaenyra's soldiers at last, and the soldiers demand that they surrender, and they also recognize Tyland as well. So Aegon steps forward, reveals his identity, and recites his titles, and dares them to strike him down. And it's very reckless and almost suicidal, but I understood it, if I'm being honest. This season has stripped Aegon of his body, crown, family, authority, and even the safe use of his own name. Declaring himself becomes the final thing he controls. Then the ground begins to shake and you hear faint dragon noises in the back, and then you see Sunfire emerge from the woods, and this was a very cool moment, to be honest, and definitely a validating moment to Aegon as well. And like I said, this was one of my favorite moments in the episode, and it's not because it redeems Aegon and not because burning soldiers is suddenly heroic. It works as a reunion of some sort. Sunfire is scarred and damaged, and in a way, it mirrors Aegon's injuries. Aegon's whispered recognition turns into laughter as the one creature he continued believing in returns for him. Then the episode ends by revealing Ormund's actual piece on the board. We find out that Ulf has been meeting him in secret. We see that Ormund flatters him, gasses him up, brings up how shitty Daemon is, and
He also argues that Rhaenyra treats him as a tool rather than the great man he believes himself to be, which I feel is very hypocritical because ultimately what Ormond wants is to use Ulf as a tool against Rhaenyra. So, you know, this is just political manipulation at its finest. Then Ulf reminds Ormond that he was previously promised Honeyholt, and Ormond dismisses that castle as trifle, which I thought that was very funny because it's still a castle at the end of the day. But then Ormond offers him something far larger, which is Driftmark and the title Lord of the Tides, which is again very astonishing and abysmal because it's not his to give. But I guess, you know, Ormond understands Ulf's real vulnerability. I mean, Ulf wants status, and yeah, more than that, he wants people to stop laughing at him. He wants that fame and all the positive things that comes out of it. And Ormond promises that they will laugh no more when they see him as he truly is. Again, manipulation at its finest. He probably can't stand his ass. And I mean, I knew Ulf's eventual destination from the book, obviously, but I didn't expect it to be revealed this way. I didn't expect, you know, Ormond to be recruiting him in the background in secret. I mean, this final scene just transforms Ormond's repeated confidence. I mean, I still think he's arrogant, but he does have Corlys in chains, and one of Rhaenyra's dragon riders is preparing to defect, so he now does have a clear advantage. It's no longer in his head, I feel. Overall, I found this episode to be slightly irritating. I'll be honest, it was still better than the last episode, but that doesn't make it flawless either. I mean, there were still some scenes in this episode that I did enjoy sitting through, but some that I didn't. And I'm just curious to see how they're going to tie all this together and wrap this up by next week's season finale. So I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But I'm also curious about what you guys think. Did this episode work for you? What stood out for you the most in this episode? And how did you genuinely feel about it? And that's it for today's video. If you enjoyed the video, please consider subscribing. I plan on covering every episode this season, and I'd love to have you along for the ride. And feel free to let me know your thoughts down in the comments below. But thanks again for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.